What's up, YouTube? My name's Roak. I've been a musician for about a decade now. Um, it's been kind of a crazy ride, honestly, and I guess I'd like to tell my story about that. I think, where should I start? So, I didn't even start music until I was like 24, 25, something like that. I think 24, back in 2016. So I was going to turn 25 that year, but my birthday's in July. But anyways, um, randomly started a band, and I don't know what the hell. I was in a weird place back then. Um, I had become like insanely financially successful by the age of 24. Um, and I think that I never thought I would get there, first of all, like financially speaking. And then all of a sudden I did. And I didn't know what to do. I wasn't very happy with where I was at in my life. And you would think that's weird. It's like, you become successful, had nice cars, nice place to live, had a great girlfriend at the time. But I felt very like unfulfilled in my life during that time. And I think it's because I kind of had that like get rich or die trying mentality, it was something that I don't really know how to explain it, but I just wasn't in a good spot and I wanted something different. So I decided to dedicate myself to music. And even though I had tried to play the guitar my whole life, I'm still shit at the guitar 10 years later. I tried other instruments as well. I have no talent for them, but I decided to give singing a shot, and still doing that now. And I had like the tiniest little bit of talent for singing, which was cool. So it was better than just completely being trash. Like guitar, my hands just don't have it. So anyway, I started taking singing lessons, and I really enjoyed doing that. And, so I decided I was going to start a band. Well, actually, let me back up for a second. It all kind of started with my cousin. So my cousin decided he wanted to be a rapper back then. And so I went out and I bought, Pro Tools, an interface, and a MIDI controller so we could start making beats and stuff. And I thought it would be something fun to do with him. That ended up fizzling out pretty quickly because he had some personal issues that I'm not going to go into, but he was unable to continue with that. And so I thought, well, shit, I bought all this music gear. Why don't I try and do something with it? So, gave it a shot. Was terrible at it. Took forever. I mean, it took me years to learn how to operate Pro Tools. And I think in the beginning, it really felt like a block, like the software was in the way. Like I couldn't make any music or even attempt to because it was just so difficult to operate that program. Here I am at this point in my life, and it's like Pro Tools is like breathing. I've been using it for so long now, tens of thousands of hours in the DAW, and it's really nice because it's like you just forget everything you learned about the technical side of stuff, and just get to create. And I really enjoy that now. But anyways, back to where we were at. So I started a band. A friend of mine had a concert. Friend I went to high school with. And so I went down there, and I, wanted to just go start meeting people in the music scene here in Houston. I'm from Houston. And I thought that, maybe I could get some people to jam with or whatever. And at that show, I met a good friend of mine, and me and him started a band together. And that was a crazy ride, dude. I think we started the band in 2016, and, it was pretty quick. I mean, I think by 2018, in 2018, we got signed to a record label. This was like 2 years later, which was fucking crazy, by the way. But because, like, I have no background in music, but I did have a lot of cash, so I was able to, you know, bring in experts, producers, etc., to try and help us advance faster than we could on our own. And I also learned a lot at that, during those years, because I was sat there with the producers and watched what they were doing, in the DAW, and how recording was done, and how the audio tools work, compressors, EQs, etc. Excuse me. And I was like fascinated by all that stuff. And I thought it was just the coolest thing ever. So, at the time, I just wanted to be a musician, perform on stage, and really get my feet wet with that. What's up, Kira? It's my dog over here. And I thought that, back then in 2016, it was in this weird like transitionary period in music where streaming was big, but we didn't really get it yet. At least I didn't get it yet. That streaming was going to be bigger than the radio, FM radio going to be bigger than, it mattered more than everything else, than playing live, for, people to notice you as a band. Because even though, even though you get signed, even though you get support behind you, it doesn't mean you're going to become successful. And I learned that, through that period. And I thought that was kind of the end goal, was like, let's get a record deal and let's get on the radio, and then everything's just going to fall into place. And I mean, it kind of did, because, towards the tail end of that, we were touring, playing shows, and everything was actually going really good. It was like my full-time job, playing live shows, etc. And then COVID happened. And actually at the time we were being played, on the FM radio, like not in main rotation, but, like on random, like Sunday night programs and stuff. It was pretty cool. We had got with a big time producer, and he produced a song for us, and the record label, put some cash behind it, and it started to take off. And I thought, hey, dude, we made it, And then COVID happened, and it really kind of stopped us in our tracks. I remember we showed up to play South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. And, at the time, I was like drinking heavily and partying and carrying on. And I wasn't really paying attention to like what was going on in the world. So I had no idea that COVID was happening when it was going on. And we showed up to play the gig, and nobody was on 6th Street. So we played at the Dirty Dog Bar on 6th Street. This is the weirdest thing, because like I was like, did we miss the festival? Like what? What's going on here? So anyway, we still played the gig to like one girl who showed up to the bar. It was cool, whatever. But I talked to the record label, and they were like, yeah, 'cause we were supposed to have a showcase the next day too with a lot of the label bands. And I talked to the record label, and they were like, yeah, go on and go home. We don't know if this is gonna, no one knew how long the lockdowns were going to last. It was like right when the lockdowns were happening. So we went on home, and, everything just kind of stopped. The whole world stopped. It was the weirdest thing. I'm sure everybody remembers, but it was a really bad period for me, because through doing all the music stuff, I always liked to party before the music stuff, but through doing all that, it really got a hold of me in a way that I wasn't ready for. Being out there on the road with nothing to do all the time, we were just partying all the time and playing gigs, and it was great. But when everything shut down and I was just like left in my house with nothing to do, my income had dried up, but my habit didn't stop. And I really kind of went off the deep end, man. Like I developed a horrifically crazy addiction, I was spending like $10,000 a month partying, and I had no income. So as you can imagine, all my savings dried up really fast, and kind of with it, all of my what felt like dreams of being a successful musician just felt like it just like went up in smoke. And I entered the hardest period of my life so far, which I hope it was the hardest period, end of story. But yeah, I mean, I was addicted heavily to alcohol, painkillers, benzos, coke. I mean, and that was just my daily drivers, whatever else you got, like we might give it a go, so it was it was a very bad time for me. I mean, don't get me wrong, like when you're that loaded all the time, life feels great, but you're kind of a zombie. And I had been through like alcohol withdrawals before, but I had no understanding. And I guess I had quit drugs in the past too. It's kind of been an off and on thing my whole life, and that's my adult life. And I was not ready for what that was going to be like to come off that habit. It basically disabled me mentally and physically for years. I quit. I got sober the first time. Well, I tried to get sober from that habit the first time in, 2020, December 1st of 2020. I went to rehab, and that was an eye-opening experience actually, because so I get there, right? And I drove myself down there, and, I was sitting out there in front of rehab, and I couldn't walk in, man. I knew I had tried to quit myself, and I knew what was coming, and it was just going to be agony. And so, I was sitting out there in my car, and I used to have a bottle of liquor in the trunk. So I went and grabbed the liquor, poured up a whole water bottle full of vodka, and chugged the thing. Give me some liquid courage to go to rehab. So, I walk in and get checked in and all that. And man, so I basically went to detox. Like I didn't really do a real like month or 3-month program inside rehab, but I was at the point where like I needed to be medically detoxed because I was likely going to just have a seizure and die if I tried to quit myself, all of everything. It was too much. So well, the long and short of it is, I was in there sitting in a circle talking to all these people, and I realized that, half the circle's daily drug habit was not equal to mine. And I was like, fuck, we're in deep. So, they're giving me the detox meds, and about day 7, they cut me off the detox meds. And I'll tell you right now, it's about the worst day of my life. I can't explain. If you've never been through it, there's no way to explain the levels of agony that coming off of opiates, benzos, alcohol at the same time will put you in. Like you literally feel like your body's on fire. Like it's not, have you ever seen like I think it's called The Heroin Diaries with Leonardo DiCaprio, like the convulsions, it's like disgusting, man. I can't even begin to explain how gnarly it is. And that's just day 1. Like I was in, they say acute withdrawal usually lasts like a week or 2, and then you're out of that, and then you go to what's called post-acute withdrawals. I'll tell you right now, man, I was in acute withdrawal for 100 days straight. Like hallucinating, like convulsions, sweating, seizures, night terrors. Like it was fucking horrific. But I can't even begin to explain like how fucking gnarly that shit was. And after the 100 days, it wasn't like I was better. It was kind of like it kind of felt like I had went to war and got blown up. I'm sure, actually getting blown up is worse than what I went through, but what I went through is I would feel like a form of psychological torture, and it just lasted for years, man. Like I'm been sober now for it's 2026, so like I'm coming up on 5 years. I'm at like 4.5 or something right now because I relapsed again after I got out of rehab about 6 months later, and I pretty much went back to drinking on the weekends. And before you know it, I was back on the pills and riding the white lightning again. And I didn't relapse on opiates, but because that shit was just too fucking gnarly to even consider. But I got sober for real January 10th of 22. So yeah, it's been 4 years and a few months, I guess. So anyways, after all that happened, well, during the whole year of 2021, I was still actively trying to pursue music, but I was in such physical and mental disarray that I was basically unable to even like realistically like do anything. I mean, I was a wreck, man. And then I started drinking again and all that, and I just fell apart, And after I finally got sober for real, I decided to dedicate myself to learning how to produce music. And well, frankly, I didn't really have any option because the record label kind of put us on the back burner and wasn't really helping us out with any money anymore. And I didn't have any more money because I mean, dude, I was in like $300,000 worth of debt. Like I was in a bad place. Holy shit. So, at the same time, I think I wanted to learn to produce because I didn't really have, I needed a goal. I needed something to strive towards so that I could put out of my mind how bad of a place in life I was in. I was just mentally gone, physically gone, in so much debt that I never thought I was going to get out. Now, luckily, I did have assets. I still owned a big chunk of the business that I used to own, which was a car restoration company, which is pretty cool. I owned my house. Well, not outright, but I owned a large portion of it. And I had several old school cars. And so, I sold all of my assets just to try and get money to keep going. And it was really a mind fuck, man, to have to sell everything that you had worked. I mean, it's not like I was 60, right? But I mean, I had worked my whole adult life to have those things. And I had to sell them all in order to just keep going. And it was rough, man. And not to mention, I had some good people around me at that time, but there's also people around me who did not have my best interest at heart. People were stealing from me. People were taking advantage of me. It really was not a great situation. People who are very close to me, went behind my back, stole from me. And you would think, when you're down and out like that and, that your friends would have your back. And some of them did, don't get me wrong. There were some very good people around who I really appreciate. But some of them didn't, man. And they basically did everything they could to take advantage of me. And that really hurt, So sold everything. Took off to a different side of town just to get away from. I mean, I didn't leave Houston, but I went. If you've ever been to Houston, you realize that the H is an hour away from the N, so it's a huge place. So I moved to a different side of town just to get away, and like I said, I got a job in a local studio, and just being like, help, because I didn't really have anything. I was too mentally fucked to like. I've always been an entrepreneur, right? So I couldn't start another business without having any money, and didn't have the mental capacity to do that. So I at least knew the basics of recording, and I was able to get in with a buddy and make some money doing that in the meantime while I sold all my assets in order to try and dig my way out of the hole. Well, all of my assets got me 60% out of the debt I was in. So I spent the last several years digging my way out of the rest. And in that time, I made a record with my band. I fully produced it. And it did okay. It wasn't anything successful, honestly, but it did a lot. It did great for the first record I ever made, and it was very rewarding. It really held me together through that dark period of my life to make that record, to stay focused and have a goal, and to try and just, when you're in that level of stress, when you're in that place, you need something to hold on to, and that record was that for me. And, I think it was a great record. It didn't do anything commercially, but I had a lot of fun making it. Me and my band, I think it was very rewarding, and it was very rewarding to learn how to produce and how to mix, how to master. I spent, like I said, tens of thousands of hours now in the DAW. So it's been great to see, to achieve mastery, to achieve the things that I've achieved just for me. You know what I mean? It didn't have anything to do with anybody else, but to see myself grow and acquire a skill like that was, especially in such a difficult period of my life, it was what I was holding on to, And so, I finished that record in the end of 2023 or so. And, after that, my girlfriend at the time had insult to injury, right? Excuse me. She got really sick, like very life-threatening illness that lasted about 6 months. And during that period, I took care of her financially. And that put me in another $50,000 worth of debt or more, maybe 50 to 70, somewhere like that. So in a time period when I really wasn't making any money, not any serious money anyway, man. And I had already sold everything I had, so it just set me back. It's setback after setback. It took years, man. Even at the end of 2023, I still wasn't physically or mentally well. It took, I would say, by around the end of 2024 is when I started feeling better. Not even back to normal, but better, Let's say the end of 2025, I started having days where I was feeling normal again, where I started to really come back to, myself again. And it's just, 4 years or 5 years, I'd say around 5 years from from 2020 is when I started really feeling better. And anyways, so backing up, my girlfriend went through all this health issues, and then we ended up breaking up. So, there goes all that money. And I was this whole period, man, it's just been a total fucking shit show, really, but I decided, I was like, man, I got to get my shit together. So I kind of put the band on the back burner for a while and just exclusively focused on making money. I just really was like, I need to get this debt handled, get back to zero, and I'll figure it out after that. So, I just stayed working as much as I possibly could, and just grinding my way through it. It took years. I'm sitting here today, and the next time I get paid, I'm going to be out of debt. And that's pretty exciting, to get back to zero. I mean, I do actually have a little bit of a savings now, and I could pay it off, today, but I didn't want to reach in I pay it out of my income because, you want some rainy-day money. But that's pretty exciting. I'm finally going to be out of debt. It's going to happen very soon. And so in 2024, when I first got serious about that, and the band was kind of on the back burner, Um, I personally wanted to develop vocal melody more. Like I really liked um, the rock music and metal music, new metal music from the early 2000s, late 90s, stuff like that. And if you listen to that stuff, a lot of it is like pop melody over heavy music, like Linkin Park's a great example of that. And so, I never really took the time to like dive into pop melody or like, really catchy melodies that stick in your ear. And so I thought I would go after that. And so, I started kind of like a little synth pop project. Made a couple songs, no big deal, but I learned music theory. Rick Beato has got a great course on that in a book that'll teach you all you need to know about it. But, I started reading books about it, getting involved with it, thinking about it, working in the studio all the time. And I thought I was able to develop some pretty cool melodies. And the kind of goal was always to go back to the heavier music because that's what my first band was. My first band was really kind of a cross between like, if you took like Nirvana and Marilyn Manson and System of a Down and like kind of smashed them all together. It's kind of like that. And that's kind of where my heart was always at, was in the heavier music. But I wanted to try and create some music that was like more enjoyable for a broader audience, and have a little bit more of like an earworm type of hook situation. So I did the synth pop stuff to kind of develop that. And then I got screwed over again because after I had moved to a different side of town, right after I sold all my assets. So then I moved again. This is when I'm making the synth pop project. And I moved into an apartment to try and save some money. So I had been living in houses before. I didn't really want a roommate anymore. So I just kind of wanted to be on my own and work, just kind of monk mode, isolate, get the money done. And unfortunately, that apartment had black mold in it. And the management company decided to open up the walls with all that black mold in it with all of my audio gear. I used to have like a bunch of really nice sound paneling for recording. And it ruined probably $10,000 or $15,000 worth of my stuff. And I was just kind of up shit creek, So and it was also, of course, in December of 2024. So trying to find a place to live in December around Christmas time is like impossible. So anyways, I was able to find a place to go. I had to stay at my brother's for a little while. And then I got a new spot, moved in over here. And when I got here, I set some new goals. I wanted to take what I learned with the catchier melodies and apply that to some heavier music. So I did that. And I kind of worked in all my free time over this past year relentlessly to make another record. And I'm happy to say I finished it. And the record really is the story that I just, not exactly the story that I just told you, but it's more about what was going on inside my head during all of those years of just being stuck in the mud and things not working out, and just every day having to remind myself to keep my head up, man. It's gonna, nothing lasts forever, and it's, we're gonna make it through this shit. And don't get me wrong, dude, I had days where I did not want to go on, but here we are. This record's done, and I'm proud of that. I don't know if anybody will ever like this record, but I like it, and I'm proud that I did it. It would be such a blessing to get another chance to become successful in music. It really is my passion, man. I started it for the wrong reasons, I think, but along the way, it became everything to me. it's like what kept me going, through all of that hard shit that I had to go through. And, I hope that one day I can look back on that period of my life and appreciate it because it gave me the skills to do what I'm doing now. But at this present moment, what I'm doing now is, I'm still working at the studio. I'm still making some money, but it's not like I'm just getting by, dude. Like I'm not doing great. I can tell you that. And going from having, over 7 figures in savings in your 20s, mid 20s, to I'm 34 years old now, and basically being broke. What a mind fuck, man. But it's my fault. I wasn't taking care of my money, so my money didn't take care of me. And I made some poor decisions in my life, man. But I'm just hoping that those don't haunt me forever. That I'm gonna be able to turn this shit around and make something out of myself, because I don't want to be broke no more, dude. And I don't want to be where I'm at, but it's a lot better than where I was, so this whole social media thing, dude, I'm not really any good at it. I like to make music. I don't know about making content, but what I'm going to try and do is create a video series that follows my record that I made. So my record's 12 songs. And I want to make not necessarily like a music video, but a video that might like give context to each song so that it can be understood a little more through my eyes, through the lens that I wrote it through, right? So I think I'm going to try and do 12 videos for the record. And then I'm also going to do videos documenting me making all of this video content. And, hypothetically in the future, I'd like to document making another album and maybe do this again. But that's not neither here nor there, because that's not where I'm at right now. We need to finish this one first. So I want to do my best to get this work done and get these videos out and, release this music. And I hope some people like it. I hope some people can connect to it, because, the record is a story. It's my story. And I busted my ass to make it. And it's the culmination of everything I've learned in the past decade, inside the melody, inside the mix, the master, the songwriting, everything that, I've learned in the past 10 years, I put into making that record. And lyrically speaking, all the hard stuff that I had to go through in the past 10 years is in that record too. So I think it deserves to be told in the right way. So I'm going to do my best to do that through this video content. So thank you guys for listening, and I look forward to putting this record out and connecting with some of you guys, man. So hope you guys have a good one. Thanks for listening.